Hello everybody. In this video I'm going to cover the last way to solve quadratic equations we will cover in this course, the quadratic formula. The method of using the quadratic formula to solve a quadratic equation allows you to solve any type of quadratic we haven't been able to solve yet. The awesome aspect of this method is that it always works. Generally, this process takes a little longer than factoring, and the answers can get a bit odd. So below, we have the quadratic formula that's here. You can see we need a quadratic equation in standard form. We need to have that equals 0 on one side. From there, we can find the a, b, and c and just kind of plug them in here, and you'll see how the process works in the examples. Okay, to zoom in on this first example, we have 8 x squared plus 8x plus 15. So what you'll do, since it is already in standard form and equal to 0, you'll find your a, b, and c. From there, we can just start plugging everything into this equation over here, the quadratic formula. So I'll say x equals, and every time you have a variable, like I see b up there to begin with, a negative b, I'm going to replace that variable with a set of parentheses and come back a little bit later and fill that in. Oops, there we go, 4a, c, all over 2a. Okay, so b is 8, b is 8, a is 1, c is 15, and a is 1. All right, so from here, please take care of some easy math first. You can do -8, well, that's just -8, plus or minus. You can do this doubling of a number. 2 times 1 is 2. But for everything else, the square root, go ahead and figure this out on the side. The first thing you should do is type the numbers only, no square roots. Type the numbers in the parentheses in your calculator and get a number. What you'll find out is that it will be 4, and you will leave the square root around it. Now, you have to simplify the square root. And awesomely enough, the square root of 4 turns into 2. And what you do is you take that value and you put it back into the quadratic formula. See, the square root we figured out was 2, so it's in the same position of the square root. All right, as I said, there are no square roots in this, so we can go through and figure it out. So we've got to do the plus, we've got to do the minus. If you add the two numbers in the top together, you'll get a -6, and it is still over 2. And that is a -3. If you subtract the numbers in the top from one another, you'll get a -10. It's still over 2, which gives you an answer of -5. And those are the two answers, -3, -5. All right, let's take a look at example 2. So here we have example 2 with 2x squared minus 11x plus 3. Again, it is already in standard form equal to 0. So all we have to do is find a, b, and c. Let me move this down a little bit. And then we can write down the quadratic formula without any letters in it. Two times a. Okay, and we can substitute all of the numbers in. B is -11, B is -11, A is 2, C is 3, and A is 2. Okay, make your easy calculations first. Remember, it's going to be this and this. Negative and negative 11 is positive 11, plus or minus something, all over. 2 in the bottom times another 2 is 4. Okay, what about this square root? Well, if you take just the numbers in parentheses inside the square root, and you type all of that into the calculator, you'll end up with a 97. But that stays in the square root. All we did was find the number inside of it. Now it turns out you try to simplify the square root of 97 and nothing works. So we will take this and put it over here as the square root of 97. And these are the two answers. And very technically, you could write this out as two different answers if you used a plus only in the first answer and a minus only in the other. All right, moving on to example 3. Let's scroll over. There we go. The quadratic formula is now off screen. So let's see what we can do. This, I think the first thing to do is notice that it is not equal to 0. And it's less necessary for this than it is for factoring. You can just subtract x squared from both sides if you want to. But I still think it's easier to keep the x squared term positive. So in this example, I will be subtracting 2x and 17 from both sides. Now there's a 0 on one side of the equation and we can jump right into the quadratic formula. This is what the quadratic formula looks like all filled in. You find your a, b, and c and substituted everything correctly. From here, we can come down here, say x equals 2 plus or minus something all over 2. What is that something? Well, I don't know yet. We take all the numbers in here, we put it in the calculator and get 72. Now we would leave that 72 inside the square root because all we did was simplify the numbers inside the square root. And 72, after a little bit of work, turns into 36 times 2, which you can take the square root of 36 to get 6 square root of 2. All right, from here, something new happens that did not happen in the last example. You should check at the very end if the numbers outside of the square root can all be divided by something. And in this case, they can all be divided by 2, so do that. Divide them all by 2. So that will leave you with a 1 plus or minus 3 root 2. And all of this would be over 1, and you can write that down if you want. It's not wrong, but I would prefer you didn't write that. Perhaps a different way to see that you should divide all of the outside numbers by 2 would be if I just brought it over here and said 2 plus or minus 6 root 2 over 2 is the same thing as separating and simplifying. You can see the 2's will cancel here and the 6 will reduce with the 2 here, giving you this exact same answer we had over here of 1 plus 3 root 2. Okay, last example, I'm gonna do one step and kind of reveal steps very slowly. So very quickly, this one's a little bit different than all of them because this was x squared minus x equals negative 20 because of this distribution right here. So last bit, since it's not equal to 0, you should make sure it equals 0 first. And I'm going to slowly release steps on the screen so you can check yourself as you go. All right, here's the entire solution. You can see that you needed to get the equal 0, find a, b, and c, plug all the numbers in, do your easy calculations first. Negative and negative 1 is 1, 2 times 1 is 2. Put the numbers inside the square root in a calculator, simplify it down to a single value of negative 79 in a square root. Double check that the square root simplifies. The negative comes out as an I, but 79 does not simplify. So you end up with this answer right here. Okay, that's it for quadratic formula. See you in the next one.